I want to welcome you all to the Caetani Centre. Thanks for joining us today for this very special event with the Paranormal. I think they're called a society now. You just got your society status, the Canadian Paranormal Society. So congratulations on that. Of course, the Peter Wren and Jason Hewitt.
Yep.
We're here back in the spring to do an investigation of the house, and now they're presenting some of their findings, plus some of the other heritage sites that they've done investigations at around the province. So you'll get just a little bit more than just the Caetani Centre. For those who are, I'm sorry that we couldn't bring you into the house today. It wasn't really part of this event. That was the haunted Halloween tours that happened on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Of course, those sold out like hotcakes. And we're so thrilled with the, popularity that we will do them again. So yes, there's lots of opportunities to come back and visit the house, not only for Halloween, but we also do guided tours for the historical story of the Caetanis. So if you want a full guided tour, we'll be starting those again in the spring. We also do self-guided tours where admission's at the door and you come in and you can look on your own as well. So lots of opportunities to actually see inside the house. Just not today. Today you're going to learn about all the interesting happenings that have occurred in the house and elsewhere. And yes, you are getting a little glimpse of Sveva Caetani's artwork. Our benefactor, Sveva Caetani, did all the paintings that are in this room, part of her recapitulation series. So this is definitely a sort of a boon for us to have these works back here in Vernon. They were in Alberta for 35 years. So, okay, well, we have a few more people to sit. Okay.
Who said 3:15?
And if you have any questions about the house or the centre, you can find myself. I'm Kristen. I'm the Tourism Communications Coordinator. And I have Taylor, who met you in the driveway. She's our intern. And then there's Nancy here, who's one of our long-time valuable volunteers, who's done a lot of research on this place. All right, enough of me. I'm going to introduce Peter Wren and Jason Hewitt from the Canadian Paranormal Society. Yes. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah. Let's turn this light on. All right. I guess first off, who here actually believes in ghosts? Let's see a show of hands. That's pretty good. Who here doesn't? He's been doing this for 30 years.
I wasn't supposed to do that.
I always like to do a gauge. You just never know, right? I mean, it's Halloween. People get to the Halloween spirit, so they come from out of that interest, or maybe they come out of a general interest in the paranormal itself. So that's great that so many people do. We're not going to try to convince you one way or the other here today. Cool. Who are we? We are the Canadian Paranormal Society. We were previously a foundation, but we just became a government-registered not-for-profit society. Our goal is just to go out and investigate what happens when we die, if there is life after death, if there is an afterlife, etc. All of us here have sort of our own personal experiences that have kind of driven this interest in coming and investigating the paranormal. So today we are going to kind of go through a bit where we talk about who we are. We're going to reveal the investigation process, go over the equipment that we use, the different types of hauntings. We're going to show you some photo evidence, or some people might say evidence, of what we found over the years, and sort of take some questions from you and kind of hopefully share some of your stories. And as we go along, we'll tie as much into the investigation we did at Caetani here earlier this year to kind of share it that way, because like they said earlier, we can't actually take you guys inside and walk you through it. So first off, we'll go to About Us. There we go. Who are we? Well, I'm Jason Hewitt. I'm the co-founder of the Canadian Paranormal Society. I've had an interest in the paranormal since I was probably 5, and just had a number of experiences since then that have kind of piqued my interest, that drove me to become an obsessive fan of shows like the original In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. I kind of read every book I could think of. Yeah, I just gave my age away. I was born in 1972. I'm 50. I'm old. I just sort of didn't start really doing this seriously until 2003 when I was in journalism school, because I was a mainstream journalist at the Kamloops Daily News for a good decade, where I had to do a magazine article, and I had a whole semester to write one magazine article. And I went to Tronquil Sanitarium, I'm from Kamloops, and investigated there, which had been shut down in the 80s, and kind of did, I was lucky, I could find someone who alleged to have experiences out there. I could find a psychic, a skeptic, and someone with a bunch of camera equipment to take and investigate. I got to spend a whole night, convinced them to allow us to go spend a whole night investigating, and had absolutely nothing happen in the entire evening that I was there. Which, as we go through this, you'll find is more the norm than anything else. And I started investigating seriously, quote unquote, professionally with Peter in 2017 when the Vancouver Paranormal Society was doing a membership drive. So I joined them, and that's when I met Peter. We've worked together for 5 years, and last year we decided, because we're both in the interior, to form the Canadian Paranormal Society. So that's a bit of my story. Peter?
Yep. Hi guys, my name is Peter Wren, and I am co-founder of the Canadian Paranormal Society. My background is I've been investigating now 27, 28 years. Started my life back in obviously in the UK, London. Had a couple of experiences as a child. Didn't quite know whether it's paranormal at that time or not, but kind of got me intrigued in relation to paranormal. Started researching and started investigating actually when I was 16 with an old group back in the UK. Took my craft, I travelled, I lived in Australia and New Zealand for a few years before immigrating to Canada, investigated throughout those places as well. Who's here heard of the TV show Ghost Hunters? I'm an ex-director of TAPS. I was an international liaison for them as well, with like a worldwide search of if you've got problems in your house and stuff like that. My part of my job, my portfolio was to find groups under a certain criteria to help guys out and stuff like that, to give everyone kind of a peace of mind. I've also been working with an ordained exorcist now down in Washington State for the last coming up 10 years. I do a lot with negative cases as well. I'm kind of a sideline with the paranormal ventures with what we have with the Canadian Paranormal Society, and we've also co-authored 3 books.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Which we didn't bring any copies of either. We're not those people.
I'm also a creator of a newly launched channel, co-created with Jason and myself on YouTube called I Want to Believe, and we are co-creators of a documentary show, an award-winning documentary show on the Paranormal Network.
Called We Want to Believe as well. And that includes an upcoming episode that we filmed here at Caetani House. Okay.
And then going around the table with the other investigators on the team, would you like to introduce yourselves?
My name's Greg Workington. Don't have as much experience as these 2 gentlemen, but I started in the coast with a different group. Spent several years there, moved to the interior last summer, and joined up with Pete and the team just recently. I did raise my hand, I am a skeptic, and have yet to have any experiences. And if it happens, then I'll change my mind. Until then, I reserve judgment. And yeah, I look forward to seeing this presentation as well, as I was not part of this particular investigation.
Cool. And Greg hates speaking in front of people, so that was great.
Good
job, Greg.
Yeah, I used to be president of Vancouver Paranormal Society, which is the oldest paranormal research group in Canada. That's where I first met Greg and Miriam.
And I'm Miriam Donnelly. I've had experiences since I was little lass and grew up in Vancouver. Me and my husband here have moved up to Summerland. And I've known Pete for a while through VPS. And actually, it was through a workshop of the psychic circle that I was part of. And I came, we were invited, these guys, was the Vancouver Paranormal, was a different group, what was the name of the group?
Northern Paranormal.
Northern Paranormal. He was in that group, and they did a presentation to us, and that's how I met Greg. That was 7 years ago. Yeah, I've lived in the UK, I've had some interesting experiences, and I'm happy with this bunch of guys. They're very down to earth, and I like the healthy skepticism. So, enjoy.
Right, now we've got the guy holding, or filming your mic. All right, hang on.
I'm Michael Stewart. I'm one of the investigators with the Canadian Paranormal Society, as well as cinematographer for We Want to Believe. I've been interested in the paranormal since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and I've been basically working this along with Jay pretty much since I've known him.
Yep.
37 years plus, we've been interested together. We've had a lot of interesting experiences, and I'm looking for more.
Yeah, Mike's old too.
I'm older than he is.
I'm Olivier. I've been with these guests for about a year now. I met them at a presentation like this and been fortunate enough to investigate with them. Always had an interest in the paranormal, and then had one experience that kind of marked me, and then I decided to pursue more.
This is Ian. Ian's new.
Okay, yeah, my name's Ian. I've just joined the group today.
Welcome, Ian.
My first investigation was in the UK back in 1995. I've had an interest in the paranormal since, and I've always been a skeptic. It's always about debunking. I've never seen anything myself until early last year in Canada when I lived in Saskatchewan, when I did a residential property. That investigation went on for 16 months, and I caught some amazing evidence. So let's see what we find with these guys.
Good luck, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We're good.
So the just to extend a little bit more about our Canadian Paranormal Society, we were obviously originally we were founded as the Canadian Paranormal Foundation. We do specialise in fundraising for non-profit societies up and down BC, and we kind of have that as an overlap in relation to the paranormal. Obviously, this time of year is more popular for us as well in relation to what we do. Unfortunately, with the government regulations and the way we wanted to be non-profit, non-funded, so we decided to reassert ourselves as a society, which was good to us. The We Want to Believe show, Jason, would you like to?
Yeah, We Want to Believe started as just as a side project, as a way to kind of document our investigations. It's one thing to kind of go into a place and use our audio, but we wanted to sort of film what was going on as well. And then I have a friend of mine named John Fallon, who's in the film industry, and he's a filmmaker, and they were starting a new YouTube channel through Joe Blow Media, and they were looking for content. He's like, instead of just having a show that would be like a podcast, why don't you create it and we'll put it up on YouTube? And that's sort of how that took off. And basically what we do is it's the exact opposite of everything you watch on every ghost show. I don't know, there's that 28 Days Haunted that just showed up on on Netflix. Yeah, I don't know, not even know.
28 seconds.
Yeah, 28 second one. What we try to do is show just what we do on an investigation. We don't over dramatize stuff. We don't like make false scares or anything. We just present our findings in a way that tells the story of the location that we're at, shows what happens or doesn't happen, and that's been the point of the show. It's been well received in the community, the paranormal community, and it's won some awards at festivals as well, so we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah, being obviously I was a part of TAPS for probably the best part of about 6 or 7 years. I wanted to drift away from that Hollywood element, so if we were to do this, it was to do it as a kind of a final dramatisation. What you see is what you get. A lot of what we do is, it's sitting around doing nothing, and you're waiting, and then only then when you get something happening, you have to question it, and unfortunately TV doesn't always perceive it like that. It's always, as soon as they go into a destination, something happens, it's automatic, yeah, that's paranormal, which, it's not, otherwise we're not investigators. So we also have the I Want to Believe channel, which was launched last year as well. It's kind of, at the moment, elements more in podcast. I have my own podcast show, which I do once a week. I interview subject experts, that kind of thing. Also kind of witnesses to paranormal as well, and that's started to take off very slowly, but we're on the right path. And then all of our 3 books as well, which is available on Amazon, which is a bit of a plug there, but they're doing good as well. So, okay, the investigation process. So the types of investigations generally we do are residential, commercial, and we have done some government buildings and obviously public sites such as this. Our goal, main goal, is to either find a logical explanation behind instances or validate the witness's claims. That's it. That's primarily what an investigator does in paranormal. We're not, you know, we don't deal with mental health for people or anything like that. We are here to prove what you guys have experienced. So whether, you know, whether it's you move into a house, there's creaks and bangs and stuff like that, and you feel that it's a ghost, you call us in, and we're all different elements. We're all different subject experts and things. Myself, my background is construction. I know a lot about buildings and how buildings operate, the fabrics and stuff like that. We have different subject experts within our team and other resources that we can lean on as well. We never claim to remove spirits. You get psychics and mediums and stuff like that that can claim to remove spirits from your home by cleansing or whatever way suit possible. It's a bit of an overclaim really in relation to what we're trying to, what the intent is, and I don't, to be honest with you, the only person that can really, in my eyes and what I've seen, the only people that can remove spirits from their home is that person themselves, and whether it's coaching them, that kind of thing, or just dealing with what's going on in there. You shouldn't have to pay a third party to come into your house to clear spirits. No one investigates alone. We do not have any of our investigators going to any places on their own, obviously not because they're going to get attacked by a demon. It's the fact of personal safety. You're going into a stranger's home and vice versa as well. We're a stranger going into your home as well. Over the years since I've been living in BC, I've had a lot of things go bad in relation to investigations, not on the paranormal side, but when we walked into places. One particular time in Vancouver, I was chased out of a woman's house with a pair of scissors, and one of my female members as well was attacked physically outside a woman's house when she was trying to enter as well. So just as a rule of thumb, yeah, everyone, safety is number one. There's also obviously the building condition as well. If someone trips and falls over, and they're on their own, like, you know, they're not going to...
Mike almost falls down a flight of stairs
every
time and goes
and
somewhere.
we have to be around Michael as well.
I always almost fall down the stairs.
Yeah, typically investigations run between 4 to 5 hours, daytime and night time. Like, there's no ghosts don't come out at night. That's just what you see on TV. I personally would prefer to investigate in daylight, because when you get to night time, your mind starts playing tricks on you if you turn the lights out, and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I can see all sorts of crap in my own eyes before it's even paranormal. So the best way ultimately, the ideal investigation is daytime. Obviously it suits better with our schedules as well. And yeah. And it also gives us the ability to, for the duration of the investigation of 4 to 5 hours, it gives us a kind of understanding if there's paranormal activity. We can establish characteristics in the actual the claims itself, whether it's an EVP, electronic voice phenomena, that's a mouthful, or if it was something that was physically moving as well. We can, and then we'll go back, you know, to see whether there's trends in it and stuff like that in relation to it. A lot of them, common misconceptions of investigating is that we need to aspect of ghost on every investigation, which is utter rubbish. We can investigate for months and months and months, and if not years, and not experience anything. But then something happens, and we're not qualified to deem something as paranormal as such, because there's no one that's qualified on this planet within the craft of what we do. But it's something to us that's unexplainable. And then when that thing happens, whether it's a visual or whether it's something we hear, or it's something that we deem as evidence we've captured on either a camera or a voice recorder, it makes it all worthwhile. It's that big fish that you suddenly caught. It's like, yeah, I'm going to, keep at it. And it does consume a lot of your time as well.
It does.
It becomes a bit of a hurdle, especially when you've got a family as well. All this excitement in your life. So equipment. Just a quick overview in relation to the type of equipment we use on our investigations. This is a bit of an old picture of my equipment I used to take around with me with Vancouver Paranormal Society. There was like DVR systems, there was cameras, modified cameras, there was every piece of plastic, piece of crap that you can buy online that would make a beeping noise. I bought it because I thought it would be great to experiment and stuff like that. What I've learned over the years is stick to the basics. My equipment now is just that little bag down there, just a little bag down there and a pack sack as well. Obviously, if you're carting around 15 to 20 cameras on the investigation, 9 times out of 10, I'm the only person that puts them up, and I have to take them down, and I have to go through 15 to 20 cameras of footage during the investigation. So it's after the investigation, so it doesn't kind of weigh itself up. So the general, the basics of what we use are pencil, notepad. That's it. That's all you need. Like if there's, you know, if something happens, an incident and stuff like that, you've got to document it. So a lot of TV shows that you see and stuff like that, they don't write things down because if you're hearing something that's not normal, you write down. You write the date. You timestamp it. So you look for trends and stuff like that in relation to did it happen a week later, that kind of thing. A lot of times when we go to clients, we ask them to document the event before we go in there as well. Again, it's to establish trends and stuff like that. Could be residual, or it helps us ascertain whether it's residual haunting, which we come to later, or whether it's an actual intelligent haunting. Motion sensor cameras or track cams. So these are typically used. They're obviously just hunting cameras and stuff like that you can buy from like Canadian Tire and stuff like that. We generally use them more on investigations when we're investigating outside. We just put them in a tree, just set them up around a certain area. There's a lot of areas where they used to live down on the coast, like farms and stuff like that, that have claims of paranormal, not so much in the actual home, but on the lands itself. So we used to go around, just strap them up to a tree and leave them there for a couple of weeks and go back. 99.9% of the time, all you get is about 3,000 pictures of a bird, and that's it. But there was occasional times where we set them up in old cemeteries and stuff like that, and we definitely got some interesting finds from that. Going back to the basics, voice recorders. So I was part of the generation that used to use tape recorders. I don't know if you remember tape recorders. But part of my first bag of equipment was a tape recorder and the old microphone, and that was kind of my go-to when I used to go to investigations and stuff like that. And that's obviously transferred over the years to more kind of digital recording and stuff like that. I keep that heavily within the groups I've been in, that we tend to catch more with EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. I pronounced that properly.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, we tend to get more EVPs on a lot of investigations and even photography, video and stuff like that. And the problem with cameras, what we've had is that there's too many questions in relation to them, because there's, you have to ask questions. If there's a blurb on the camera, there's too many questions behind it, and it's really, really difficult to replicate that. Time, because you don't always go back and stuff like that. I have got some some pictures that I'm going to show you later that I've obviously ticked all the boxes in relation to that. Laser grids, the basic premise of that being is that we use a laser that is projected to a wall or an openable space. The concept behind that being is if there's any shadow movement or anything like that, if we've got a video recorder playing or whether we've got an actual still camera taking shots, you'll be able to get it more visibly, because it will manipulate that laser grid. So you'll have an image around the outside, and what we're able to do with the laser grid, we're able to take that picture away, and if we're able to go back to the site, we can get an understanding of how tall that image was just by the laser grid, and how wide it is as well, because it gives a kind of a 2 to 3D image on that image as well, and obviously how wide it is as well. Very simple tool. It works well with us because it's flawless in relation to what it's supposed to achieve. Spirit boxes. Now, a lot of people are sceptical about these. Who in the audience have seen or heard of spirit boxes before? Small majority of you. So basically, the concept of spirit boxes is it's a radio that just jumps through frequencies. And it goes at either a slow rate or a fast rate, and it jumps through multiple frequencies at the same time. The theory behind that being is that you get the spirits are able to communicate through that frequency waveband, but we're still yet able to ascertain which one it is. But we've known to get intelligent responses come through on the spirit box. The disadvantage of being is it makes a lot of crackling noise because obviously it's a radio going. It's scanning around. We have devices where we're able to remove that static, and all we concentrate on as a group is like frequency spikes. So on a radio and a radio scanning, it comes through at a certain level. With the voices that we've got coming through that are questionable whether they're paranormal or not, they come through on a frequency spike, so they're effectively louder. That's exactly what we're after, and they come through, and we're able to abstract that from the static and just get that voice that comes through. I've had, on investigations, I've had my full name come through on the spirit box, clear as well. I've had fellow investigators. I had one particular case in Surrey, BC, where I was in a client's daughter's bedroom, and the woman in the front room heard her voice so clear, she actually ran out the front door. It was quite compelling. A lot of people are sceptical about it, but like I say, it's a tried and tested method, and I believe that there's a lot of push behind that.
We even had here, when we were investigating in spring year with Susan, and again Nancy, when we were downstairs and asking questions like, who are you closest to? Like, if you're in this room and standing next to someone, who are you standing to? And Susan's name, I believe, came through on the spirit box as well.
Yeah, it came through. It was we walked into the back room that used to be whose bedroom was that?
Sveva's bedroom in later life.
Yep. Yeah, Sveva's bedroom, and we heard a voice say, "Hi, Susan," that came through, and it was like
Crystal clear.
Yeah.
And then a second voice, different, said Sue.
Yep, that's it. Yep, yeah. In the back room as well, and that came through as a frequency spike as well, which is kind of cool. Modified still cameras. So I generally use cameras more than what I do video cameras. I have a collection of cameras that have been modified in different ways. Generally, I use cameras that can accommodate full spectrum light or infrared light. I use, there's a couple of cameras that I've got that have crystal lenses inside them instead of glass lenses, and the emphasis behind that being is a lot of people show pictures of orbs and stuff like that, which generally 99.9% of the time it's dust, and there's no way of proving it otherwise that it is actually paranormal. When we have crystal lenses, crystal doesn't absorb the light, so we're able to, it doesn't take pictures of vaults or anything like that, and obviously with the full spectrum as well, you get full spectrum of light rather than the lights that are preset on the cameras. Sorry, colours, not lights. And then DIY equipment. Over the years, I've taken more to make my own equipment in relation to investigating. The stuff that you see at ghost hunting stores, 99.9% of it is crap. There's no. It's either equipment that's been built that you cannot ascertain if it is paranormal or whether there's an environmental reason why it goes off. So, for example, like EMF, you've probably seen them on the shows. Everyone uses EMF as a gauge for detecting ghosts and stuff like that. Which, in hindsight, yeah, I believe in the theory of spirits and energy manifesting with like that, electronic magnetic fields. But there's no way of quantifying it. Whether if you're in a house and all of a sudden your meter goes up, you don't know whether it's actually something that's paranormal or whether it's just the fact that they've got Wi-Fi or someone's got a cell phone on or someone's walking past outside with their cell phone as well. it's really, really hard to define. But with my equipment, I create equipment on the pretense that shouldn't go off. There's like things like microwave sensors and stuff like that, where you kind of look outside the box, where you put that, you know, that piece of plastic on the table, you turn it on, you forget all about it. If it goes off, you're like, well, that shouldn't have gone off anyway, because it's not designed to, because we still don't know to this day how spirits are able to, or how we can actually test or detect where spirits are. So it's still a fishing rod out there to find the best method of catching that fish. So it's kind of the experimental side.
All right, types of hauntings. There are several different types of hauntings here. Pete, do you want to advance?
So yeah.
Yeah. The one common one is a residual haunting, and it's basically like going back to the era of tapes. Who remembers when you could make a mixtape? You could record a tape, yeah, right? And so you could record a bunch of songs on it. There were some where you could re-record over top of that recording. And occasionally in the moments between songs, you could sometimes hear that old song that you've recorded over. And that's kind of what a residual haunting is. It's something that's happened in a location, usually something quite traumatic, that just replays. It's like, replays every day. You say it like, 12:01 in the morning when it's raining, because something happened traumatically in that moment. There's a residential school down the coast we've investigated, and at a certain time of night, you hear on the fire escape outside just running. Ting, 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 ting. Same time every day, or every evening, the same thing going on. So they can come in the form of visual or noises. The belief system is that the spirits have no notice of the people around them. They're just doing their thing. And it's playing over and over again. So you can see an apparition on a staircase or walking down a hallway, hearing a splash in a pool that's not filled with water, because at one point it was. Train whistle blowing when there are no tracks, but there maybe used to be a train that would travel through there. A radio is heard playing music in a room where there is no radio. I haven't had too many residual haunting stories myself personally. How about you, Peter?
Yeah, most of the investigations I've done over the course of the years, I feel deemed under the category of residual. There is obviously an overlap between residual and intelligent hauntings, but definitively the places that I've been to, you get a response, but it's never, or you get a kind of a detection on the equipment you're using that there is something abnormal there, but we can't quantify as it's something being intelligent, but it's not. But anyway, we'll go to intelligent.
In a second. So an intelligent haunting is kind of more the classical haunting that you hear about. It's when a spirit or apparition has the ability to communicate or interact with the living. These are the ones that you see a lot in the movies and on television. An example of that, which I'll use from here, is when we were here in the spring, there's Ophelia's room upstairs. And there's a story that if there was her bed, and she would sleep on the left side. So anyone that would kind of go into that room and try to sleep on the left side would sort of feel themselves being pushed or moved, or they'd have really bad dreams. So I decided to test that theory. And during our investigation, I laid on the left side of the bed. And every time I laid on the left side of the bed, I'd get this intense pain in my shoulder. It would hurt. So I'm thinking, well, I'm just laying funny. So I just moved over to the right side of the bed, and it would go away. And then when I moved back to the left side of the bed, the pain would start over again. So I kind of attribute that to possibly being an intelligent haunting. But people have slept in it, they actually feel themselves being physically pushed off of that side of the bed. So we'll investigate. That's the closest I could come to sort of supporting that theory, is that when I sleep on that side lay on that side of the bed for any length of time, I would get severe discomfort. This could also include doors opening and closing, lights turning off and on, objects being taken and found later in an odd spot. There is a doll inside that apparently even on one of the ghost tours was standing. It was set in a different position at the beginning of the night. So if it's in its case, it's standing facing this way.
In a cabinet that's
locked. Cabinet that's locked where no one could mess with it. And then they came back later in the tour and it had moved and was facing that direction. That's over the span of how long, Nancy? Like
an hour.
An hour. So we've actually recorded it inside right now, and we're hoping that when we go back in later, we'll see if it's moved or not. Cold spots, they're up in the room, Ophelia's room. Olivia, you felt a cold spot in a place where a male had felt a cold spot by the door. We even have him on video sort of standing like that, and he kind of did the heebie-jeebie thing like this, which he isn't prone to freaking out, so I believe he wasn't messing with us. Being touched, having your hair or clothing tugged, seeing objects move on their own. The theories behind this is that the ghost may be attached to a dwelling, person, or object, which would make sense given the history of Caetani House and the story of the family. They are confused or not aware that they have passed on, or they have unfinished business that they need to complete before they move on, which of course is the popular trope in every supernatural horror movie. Personally, I mean, most of the experiences I would have been intelligent hauntings. I lived in a house that my father had built, and he died in 1991. And I took over the house about 10 years later, and I was the only person living in it. I had a friend of mine over at the time who was very skeptical, and he was kind of talking about, well, you know, I know you believe in ghosts and stuff. Have you ever had anything here that could prove that maybe your dad's still sticking around? And Dad was a practical joker. At that one moment when he asked that question, all the lights in my house went out. The street light was on. You could look outside, you could see the lights on in other houses on the block. And so I just kind of went, Dad, not now. And all the lights came back on. And so that's kind of a personal experience I've had in that regard. How about you, Peter?
Well, as an example to here, when we were upstairs in Valia's bedroom, we were probably in there, and obviously Olivier got the cold spots and stuff like that. We got an EVP from a voice, very distinctive. It was an older woman saying, "Get them out of here." And that was kind of, yeah, that was deemed as intelligent, because obviously she didn't want us in the bedroom whatsoever. And the fact I was laying on her bed as well, that's probably stoked the fire a little bit more. Other examples, probably the one that comes off the top of my head was investigation I did in in Fort Langley in mainland, and we were investigating an old home that's on an acreage of farm down just outside there, and we've been there probably about 5 or 6 times, and every time we went there, nothing. No paranormal activity whatsoever. It was more at that time, because it was a friend of the member of the team, it was more of a courtesy thing, because this person was like losing their mind in relation to what was going on there. And the description that came forward, that there was a small child in there. The owner of the house was obviously distressed, because it sounded like a small child that was, sometimes she was mischievous, she would move things around, that kind of thing, and then other times you could hear sobbing and crying and stuff like that. We were there, like I say, at the end of the last investigation, it was me and my investigator Scott. We were literally packing all of our things up and walking out the door, and I was literally standing on the door of the house, and Scott was standing on the porch, and just as we were about to just walk out the main door, we both heard a child's voice laughing at us, a kind of a loud, hysterical laugh. And Scott dropped all his equipment on the floor, and he did this funny dance. I still don't know what he was doing, but that was very definitive, and it was just like, oh God. It was obviously just like looking at us over the last 6 visits and saying, I'm not going to say anything or anything like that. But then after that, the activity diminished. It stopped. Don't know why to this day. Perhaps that they just wanted some kind of validation. We don't know to this day, but yeah.
Poltergeist. Anyone seen the movie Poltergeist? You probably know what a poltergeist is supposed to be. It's German for noisy ghost, and it rarely has a physical form. It's something that causes physical disturbances. Obviously in the movie Poltergeist they exaggerated it to the nth degree and threw in the whole burial ground story, things like that. But it's primarily having to do with loud noises, banging, scratchings, cryings, and then objects being moved around or thrown around a room or being destroyed on their own, or seemingly on their own. There's a bunch of theories behind, what that could be. Sorry? A big belief is that it's actually not a spirit at all, but it's just energy that's being created. Quite often, in teenagers or females in the teenage years going through puberty, and that energy is manifesting itself in terms of psychokinetic energy that's throwing things about. The Bell Witch story down in the States isn't actually so much a witch, it's more of like a poltergeist activity that they believe was actually created by one of the daughters who was living in the residence. And the story is that she was being molested by John Bell, her father, and that energy manifested itself in terms of this vengeful spirit that became this witch. Pete, you have a poltergeist story.
Yes, if any of you guys seen the Enfield Poltergeist? movie, like the show that was on TV.
Yeah, in England.
I believe the
The second Conjuring movie
yeah,
was
it
loosely
was based on that. Anyway, it was actually in Enfield in North London where I experienced this what I deem as being poltergeist activity. It was an old beaten up home, kind of sets the same scene as the poltergeist movie as well, which is kind of weird. And this particular case, it was around a family where they lost the father, and it was very traumatic, and things were happening around the house, like things were flying around the house and stuff like that. It started when the father of the home passed away, and it created a really kind of negative feeling as soon as you walk in there, that there was something amiss in the place. And it's not more the supernatural, but you know, sometimes that kind of sixth sense you have where you get in a room and everyone in that room's pissed off. You feel it as soon as you walk in. It's the same kind of thing. It's a bit like me going home, that kind of thing. Just in that perspective. And then we were there for probably about 2 to 3 weeks, and we stayed over the night. And originally, when we first started, nothing was happening or anything like that. And then we were in the kitchen in the morning, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, and there was two of my other investigators were sitting there. And the girl came downstairs, and the younger daughter came downstairs, and she was probably about 13, 14 at the time. And she was very upset and angry and stuff like that. She was very withdrawn for the rest of the family. But she walked past, we were sitting there, and the woman in the house made us some toast, and we were sitting there eating toast. And all of a sudden, there was a kettle on top of the stove, and the kettle stood up, and I looked at it, and I nudged Darren, one of my investigators, to look at it. Looked at it, and it went probably about half a foot above the stove, and then it just moved, and then it just flew across the room like that, and that's it, and it just hit the wall, and all the water was in the metal kettle just went all over the floor, and I'm like, I'm going. But no, it was very compelling, and the aftermath of that being is that the family did seek help, like mental health. They went in for counselling and stuff like that, and that's kind of diminished a lot of stopped the activity after that. It's a weird phenomenon. It is very rare. A lot of people associate poltergeist activity with intelligent haunting as well, but there is a fine line between both those hauntings.
Now the inhuman spirit entity haunting, the demonic haunting, which is the word that's thrown around a lot right now, especially on television. Basically, all it is it's a haunting related to something that wasn't a living person on Earth. So the belief is that these are ancient beings that have been around since the dawn of time, and they're now interacting with people, and generally they're evil and they're negative. Fairies, gnomes, jinn, they're all classified as inhuman spirit, and these stories exist all through different cultures and all different parts of the planet. You've got the two types, which are elemental. Much of the information of elementals comes from folklore, legends, and cultural beliefs, even spiritual beliefs. Some believe elementals have the ability to manipulate environmental patterns around us in a localized area. They have a reputation for being extremely troublesome, difficult to remove, and sometimes even fatal, resulting obviously in killing people. Due to their rarities in these hauntings, the opinions of paranormal investigators differ. Then there's demonic, which are the rarest, and they're usually the first considered by most people who are in the paranormal field, especially those on television. And they're super rare that as investigators, I've been doing this for like 20 years. I haven't come across anything I could even remotely classify or even want to lump into the negative. Peter, you've been doing the investigating for the ordained exorcist, for 10 years now. Maybe come across one case that could have potentially possibly led to something that could have been a potential possession.
Yeah, it seems like the word demonic has been categorized, like you're saying, in so many elements of the paranormal, but it's kind of lost its true meaning in relation to what it actually is. And most of the cases that I've been on behalf of the ordained exorcist, it's been more, if it has been active, it's kind of more of a negative. It's kind of that theory, if you're a horrible person in life and you die, you manifest as a ghost, you're going to be a horrible person then. And apart from the one case that I had, which was kind of a bit personal at the time, that's all I've seen in relation to that.
Unfortunately, people jump to that right away, and a lot of the conditions that could be related to something possibly demonic could also be traced back to mental health. It's a lot of the similar sort of, the disassociation, mood swings, intense anger, jealousy, hallucinations. It could also be like, a lot of the time you look for a mental health solution first before you would even consider doing anything in terms of an exorcism or anything to that regard.
That's generally the missing part with a lot of the TV shows where they're claiming it's demons and stuff like that. That demonic entity is more to that individual than what is a house. You can't go to a house and the house is demonic. It's that person itself. And with all the TV shows you see on in relation that mention the word demon, science is missing out that equation. And like they don't tick the boxes first. Like if I'm seeing demons and things that I deem as kind of not normal, the first thing I would do is go out and see a doctor. Go out and see a doctor and get myself checked out first. But a lot of the TV shows, they just kind of rush in and go, yep, sorry, yeah, you got a demon, sorry. And at that, as being investigators as well, when you've got people's sanity in your hands, when you're going in as that subject expert, it's a very thin line in relation to what we say, and we have to be very careful as well at the same time.
We do. I even got an email from a woman once who's saying that her son had been in a coma and came out of that coma and was behaving differently, and she was like, should I take him to an exorcist, because I believe could another spirit have entered his body and is now manipulating him? And I'm like, well, first I'd go see a neurologist, because if your son was in a coma, something might have happened with his brain. And I'd probably jump to that first before even emailing someone like myself. To me, that's logical, but so many people just automatically believe that based on pop culture, what they've read in books and seen on television. Portal hauntings. No one knows for sure if portals actually exist. The theory is, though, that if portals do exist, they exist between our world, the physical world, and the spiritual world, and this allows spirits a pathway to cross from their realm into ours, or vice versa. It's speculated that hauntings and paranormal activity increase near these doorways, which could be a variety of different things. Mirrors are believed to be portals. People will say, like, cover up all the mirrors in your home if you're having ghost activity, because the ghosts are just coming through your mirror. Water is believed to be kind of a conduit as well. The hauntings take place around rivers and streams. Same with railways. Shaman portals in ancient times, and even with Aboriginal tribes today, people depend on a shaman or medicine man to lead them through a portal. Near-death experiences are also believed to kind of be a portal between our world and the next. You hear about the tunnel of light and the shadows and moving through this tunnel to the other side. In all classifications of the various hauntings shown, if you are unsure about the type of spiritual activity you're experiencing, it's always recommended to contact a knowledgeable paranormal investigator. That's our shameless plug for ourselves. As knowledgeable as we can be.
Yeah. Okay, this is the meat and bones of what we do. So I'm going to go through a few pictures that I've captured over the last 15 years since I've been investigating BC, and kind of a disclaimer to this is that I don't claim that these are Casper the Friendly Ghost or anything like that. All I know is about these pictures is that when these pictures were taken, they were taken in a controlled environment, so I knew exactly who was around that proximity that could have probably manipulated that picture and made that image go on there. And I also know I have a very knowledgeable understanding of my cameras, so things like orbs and like a bug coming past the screen and stuff like that, I'm able to discount that because I've modified my cameras as well. I have very strict protocols when I take pictures as well, in relation to when I produce them to the client, that I have to tick all the boxes in relation to before I give it to that client and say that this is a find that we found. I'm not claiming it as a piece of paranormal evidence per se. It's evidence to me because I can't explain it, and that's the disclaimer I have. So going through, because there's quite a few on there. This particular picture is the first picture was taken, and this is a place called Stewart Farm, which is in Surrey, BC. This was taken probably about 8 or 9 years ago when we started the investigation down there. We initially started that investigation down there on the pretenses of doing public funding. None of the members of the heritage site there claimed that there was any paranormal activity going on or anything like that. We just set up cameras in there just to give a kind of it was like a paranormal 101 in relation to what we did and stuff like that. We had zero expectations of catching anything. This particular night, I set up my motion camera. We actually set this up overnight, and it took the test shot and upstairs in one of the bedrooms, and then we caught this second one there. So we just jump back. And, it's the right-hand side of the doorway. So what the story is, without dragging this picture out too much, on the right-hand side where that image has come out, that's actually the old cook's bedroom, and he was found dead in his bed. That's Ryan.
It's very good,
dead in his bed. He was found dead in his bed, and they could not find a cause why he died whatsoever, and they just put it down to natural causes. But he was in his late 30s, and it was kind of a weird thing to happen down there. Local police just brushed it under the carpet. So that was the first one. So this one is a investigation we went to on behalf of a city down in the Lower Mainland. The poltergeist story. Loads of houses were built on a burial ground, and a number of tenants of this one particular area came forward and said that they're all experiencing the same thing. So the city reached out to us to document what was going on, kind of a black and white view on, do we think that there's things going on there that are suspicious, or are they just making it up, kind of thing. So we set up a week down there. It was probably about 5 or 6 different houses, and we noted similar characteristics on 2 different houses, which I have both sets of the pictures. This is the first house where we set up a motion camera. Again, all of these houses were vacated, and we just left cameras running overnight. The families were put up in a local hotel so we can control the environment. So this was the control shot, and that was the second shot we got coming downstairs. It could be, people think that, slow shutter speed could manipulate that and stuff like that. All I can say is that the camera shot wasn't manipulated at all. It was what you see is what we got, and no one was able to get access to that house whatsoever. The next slide I'm going to bring up is Fort Langley. So there used to be a series of heritage stores along the front of Fort Langley, just slightly up the road from Fort Langley. They've actually demolished these now, put houses on there. Drives me nuts, but this was a restaurant down there called Lamplighters. There was two stores combined, so that doorway was that interlinks both the original stores, but they actually just pushed the restaurant out. And the staff in there, Italian family, were very conscious about stuff going on there. We spent probably about 2 years documenting stuff in there, and it was very periodic in relation to the evidence. We've got a number of good finds, and I've got a second image as well, which was quite conclusive for us as well. But this is the first shot that we've got, and I would like you to pay attention to the doorway. On the left-hand side of the doorway, there's a picture with kind of a silver frame. So the next shot, we got that. So what is interesting about where that, and to me, it looks like a woman. But what was interesting about that is where her, and I have to look at this correctly, where her right side shoulder is, that is actually a doorway. So she would be physically outside with that particular shot, in line where their picture is and stuff like that. But what the original restaurant was pushed out to the front of the towards the deck at the front, probably about 3 or 4 feet, and they had to reduce the footprint because of structural issues on the restaurant during the renovation. So she's kind of mid part, inside and out kind of thing. So you guys see that?
No. Can you go back?
Sorry.
Oh, there.
So where the again on as I'm looking at it on the left hand side, that silver frame, and you've got, if I jump back again, you've got a kind of a person standing there with big fluffy hair by the looks of it. Okay, so next one is we did a childcare place down in the Lower Mainland. We did that for a number of years. The members of staff from there were always claiming they can hear male voices in this daycare surgery, and we set up cameras in there, and we actually set up an AGM on the room next door. But I'm just going to jump to it. So what we have in the middle, there's like a kind of a cloud in relation to a shadow that's overlapping. Well, it's forming on the wall opposite. There's I have a camera. I have a laser receiver. So when that laser gets obstructed, it sends a signal to the camera, which then takes a shot. This particular case, this is what it picked up at one time. There's no particular image in relation to that. It's just this cloud mass that was there. But it was interesting that some of my team members that investigated there before claimed that there were, when they were sitting at the tables, the smaller tables on the right hand side, they had Lego bricks thrown at them, and that would, that could add some substance to the claim as well. Next one is a hotel, and I'm going to tread very carefully in relation to how I describe this hotel, because I am allowed to show the pictures, but the location is very confidential. Obviously, being an operating hotel, they want to keep it as a kind of friendly place rather than known to be active as such. So this picture was taken on the upper floor of the hotel, and this part of the hotel was opened up probably about 10 years ago, and it was always the history wrote that originally the upper part of the hotel was more to do with the servants that lived there, and there was also connections to the hotel on the upper part with the Chinese railway as well. So it's kind of we never really defined the history of it or anything like that. So it was just like trying to put pieces of the puzzle together. But this was, again, laser receiver. If you look on the right hand side of the doorway, just concentrate on that. I had a laser going through the banisters to the other room, and then it picked up this image in the doorway. Now, at the back, you probably can't see that, so let me just bring that up there. So that was, to me, I've blown it up, looked at it. It looks like to me a guy in a suit of some kind, maybe a uniform, with the same colour hat as well. What we don't know is what kind of uniform, if it's a uniform or suit or anything like that. But one of the things that we were able to do was that one of the other investigators, when we was on the lower floors, she was going around taking random photos with her phone. We actually got the same image downstairs, which was remarkable for us. So can't really see too much, but over on the right hand doorway, there's something poking out there. So let's just zoom in there. So we've got the same kind of characteristics as the previous picture, where you've got what looks like a navy blue uniform with that kind of thing, and then you've got with that one as well. It's you've got the shoes. To me, it looks like a suit and stuff like that. But then that's that. Next one is this. Next one's an old BC Hydro building down the Lower Mainland. We did another public investigation fundraising down there, and this was quite the place for 4 years when we investigated the place. It never failed for people to have personal experiences there. This was set up in one of the electronic rooms. It was kind of apparatus were there for demonstrations about how electrics work and stuff like that. On the right hand side, there's two individuals that are a part of another paranormal team that visited us as well. And they joined us as well, and they were just sitting there. What was kind of stupid on my part, but not stupid in relation to what we called, was I actually had this camera set up on motion, so I had probably about 300 pictures of them just sitting there moving around and stuff like that. And I'm just click, 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 and all of a sudden it's like, what the hell's happening? Anyway, while it's going through its clicking process, it picked up that image there. So I questioned both those paranormal investigators, and that, whoever that is, and some people say it's someone with long hair and stuff like that. You can't really tell, but whatever that was, wasn't present when we were there. It has quite the outline as well, and contours on it to say that there's, there is something there. It's not just a case of a camera malfunctioning or anything like that. Next one is the Commonwealth Hotel in just outside of Princeton. Have you heard of Commonwealth at all? Yeah, it's on the way there. So we investigated the hotel for probably 2 to 3 years before they shut the doors because it became a fire hazard. It was unsafe. There's numerous stories that come from that hotel. None of the stories we were able to validate, but apart from the bar was probably the most active place. What I remember of that whole building. So what was set up here was I was sitting at the bar, and I wasn't drinking at the time because I don't drink, but I was set up at the bar, and I was alone, and I was asking questions about someone coming forward, and then all of a sudden I got a smell of perfume coming. Like I smell perfume, and I'm not psychic or medium or anything like that. I'm kind of like, what you see is what you get with me. Very analytical mind, that kind of thing. I felt someone walking towards me, and I felt it because you can feel that kind of physical presence by the side of me. So I'm clicking my button of my camera, which was standing behind me, and then I picked up that. Well, the people said it's a glare off the camera, glare off that light, it's reflected off the camera to create that image, which it can't be because that camera actually has a crystal lens and it can't reflect light to the way it was doing there. So that to me was, I could not, there's no logical explanation to that. James Cohen Theatre in Burnaby, did a public investigation there, set my camera up, we were all up the stage, we had the local media out as well, I had a local psychic, and then all of a sudden we could hear the seats moving in the audience. I started clicking my camera, and I heard one of the seats go thump, so I immediately turned with my flashlight to look into the crowd, and we've got that image there. I don't know if you can see the person sitting in the back. The light on the side there, you can see the light on the chair, that was me with the flashlight. And that was quite significant because we actually had the mayor there as well. And it was quite the... we ran out quite quickly after that. So this actually hit the newspapers as well. I was kind of really proud of that one because there was a lot of people to validate the fact that there was no one sitting there. And there was no one that could actually make that kind of image as well. Going back to the working for the city as well, that light that you saw earlier on walking up the stairs, this was another house 2 doors up. Set cameras up there overnight and didn't expect anything and left them there for just overnight, and then we came in the morning and my cameras actually went off, and this was one of the test shots he got. This was the second shot. You can see the black image coming around the door, and then that was the third shot as well, so that was kind of interesting. Again, the doors were locked, and the family were actually relocated to a hotel as well. No one had access to that house. Next one is laser grids. So this is kind of a weird one. Laser grid in another investigation in Surrey. I was sitting behind the camera and I was taking a number of pictures, and I was asking the spirit to come forward, and I took a number of pictures, and I didn't notice that this would happen, but then we got that appeared, and I don't know whether your eyes can kind of see what's behind it, but it looks like there's a guy in a vest there. Very tall guy as well, taller than any of us that was on the team and stuff like that. It was slightly smaller than an average door height as well. So we got that one. Next one, lamp lights again. It's on that doorway that you guys saw earlier on. It's on the other side of the doorway. So this was pointing towards the staff area. I'm going to bring these backwards and forwards. There's a bit of a So this was one of the test shots. So then we've got that, and then you see the leg at the bottom. It's like he's dancing. Look, if I go back to the forward, see, spinning around, and then disappeared like that. And then next one was in Harrison, residential case we did. Interesting house. Half the house was actually built from reclaimed wood from Duncan and brought over, and that part of the house had the most energy in relation to what the client was coming forward with and stuff like that. So on the right hand side you can see kind of an outline of a woman's face. That particular doorway, and I was trying to set my camera up at the time, that particular doorway is where the dogs will not look away from. Like as soon as they moved into that place, the dogs would actually just physically fall asleep in front of them, further back, but they would not. They were fixated about that doorway, and there was always barking in that doorway. And as I was setting the camera up, weirdest thing, I was playing around with the light. That's why it was kind of bright image. But this was the second image we got. So I come around the corner there. It's kind of interesting, and it matched the profile of a kid that passed, that was killed, that lived on the log cabin just outside of the actual house itself. So it was quite kind of interesting. Maritime Museum in Victoria. We were there. I was there probably about 11, 12 years ago. We were in the back portion of the museum that backs onto Bastion Square. There's an urban myth or story about a lady in white that has been seen around Bastion Square, and if you Google it and stuff like that, it's well documented and stuff like that. But this particular part of the museum used to be a part of Bastion Square at the back, and on the right hand side where the glass cabinet is, that was exactly where they used to hang people. And the story of the lady in white was that she was the first woman allegedly to be hung, and the last woman, or something along the lines of that. And she's been known to be seen around Bastion Square. Set the camera up. This was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I set it up in a room on the pretenses that it would play overnight, and so that's why you've got the bright lights and stuff like that, the actual lights projecting through. And shut the door, locked it, and then about an hour later, one of my investigators said, "Pete, your camera's going off in that room." And I'm like, okay. So I went in there. Usually when it starts clicking, it means the battery's run out. So I went in there and changed the batteries over and left it running again. And it was only the next day when I went through it, I found this. So look at that. The black. What we got was, it was a woman with black hair, and she's wearing like a white cloak down, and she moved in front of the camera. And then the second image is that you can just see her disappearing on the left hand side of that image out of the screenshot on that. That's kind of interesting for us. Again, controlled environment, cannot explain it. Next picture is, and you guys probably know the person in the next picture. This was in that Harrison investigation as well. Both me and that gentleman there on the right hand side was in a closet, and the weirdest thing about it was we were sitting in it was a really close, tight closet, and we were wearing hoodies and thick coats and stuff like that because it was like really, really cold there, and I felt like kind of a brush across my ear. And I thought it was like my hoodie running across, but my hoodie was like further down. And so I moved back, and I took, the camera was set up right by the side of me. So I took a number of shots, and we got that kind of black outline on the right hand side. Oh, sorry, left hand side, which is kind of significant for us as well. Next one, Barkerville. We were there last year. This was set up in the post office. There was, that was controlled. We were there for the whole day. We rented the site, and had problems setting up the camera. And the only reason why we set things up in it was because the lady that was showing us around said that she got this kind of creepy feeling about the post office. So we set the camera up all day, and it caught that. And it looks like there's a guy in a waistcoat or something with white sleep and stuff like that.
And the only way into that room is through that door where the camera is facing. There's no way to get in behind it. And we did get pictures like the security guy doing his tour and coming in and stuff like that. But what that was the shot, the frame before that, there's nothing. In the frame after that, there was nothing. But in that particular frame, there was that.
Cool. So next one is about 4 years ago, just before COVID. I went down to Birdcage Theatre in Tombstone, and this was actually in the basement of the Birdcage Theatre. And the grill, it's weird because on the side of the stage of where the Birdcage Theatre is in Tombstone, there's like a grill where you can look underneath and you can look in the basement area. And that area is where they used to play cards like White Up and that kind of thing. And that's allegedly the area that has the most activity. On the left-hand side that's been circled, that's actually the gift shop. And this is kind of peeking off, but this image is fairly widely available on media at the moment because other people have stolen it from me, but that's a different story. But that was taken. We were taking test shots of the site because I've always wanted to go to Tombstone anyway, so I was taking every square inch of the site and couldn't explain it. I took that back to the people that showed us around and could not explain that whatsoever. Again, back to Tombstone. This picture was taken by Jason and Grant probably about 15 years ago when, or probably longer than that, about 15 to 20 years ago when they did the investigation at the Birdcage Theatre, and I don't hold any credit to that whatsoever. And this picture was actually a part of the show, and I asked them permission if I can actually put this on there. But what I was able to do was when I went there to investigate, I put a camera on the top of the stairs, which is behind that, and I caught that on the top of the stairs. So this is about 15, 20 years later. Caught that, so that was kind of cool. Next one is this is a basement of a hotel that's in BC. Let's just leave it like that, where lots of stories associated with it. No one knows really even the stories or anything like that. But that stone wall behind it was built probably about 80 years ago. But before that opening was a tunnel that led to the river. And what they used to do, they used to smuggle booze and prostitutes in through that tunnel. And there's been a considerable amount of activity around that area. And we went in there, and I set camera up overnight and stuff like that. And what was interesting about this next picture I'm going to show you was that apparently when I set it up, I was setting up things downstairs, and just as I walked out, there was another investigator down there. It went off almost as soon as we left the room, according to the other investigator that was there. So they just picked up that as a separate image. And again, people said, "Oh, I can see someone rolling down and stuff like that. It looks like a woman." We don't really know, right? You can look at it and everyone can interpret it as something different, but it was something of interest to us as well. Barkerville again, this is the last one. This was taken, was
it the Barkerville Hotel?
Yeah, the Barkerville Hotel
upstairs.
So what we did, because Barkerville was a huge footprint, it's like 126 cabins that we had to investigate. So we were setting up cameras and just leaving them there overnight and during the day and stuff like that. And weren't expecting much. We were just, obviously with that, we was only there like for 8 hours. It's kind of like a needle in the haystack. And we was only as good as the stories we got from there. So we set a camera up upstairs, and the camera, when I went back, it was drained of battery, and it took hundreds of shots of the same thing. So, but what was interesting was that it caught, and I caught that there. On the door there.
And that's like, there was no one in the building, it was locked, it's upstairs, there's no way to get in. And when we were going up and down there was nothing in that room.
And that's that.
So, did anyone here want to talk about or share their experiences or have any questions or anything like that? Does anyone here live in a house they believe is haunted, and what kind of things have gone on? Absolutely. Do you want to share what happened, or?
Well, it just, put it this way, I basically conceived in the house I'm talking about. One incident that really comes to mind is when I was about maybe 16 years old, came home from a night of responsible drinking. and I walked into the kitchen, I think I was going for a snack, and I'm like looking straight at the fridge, and the door had opened up aggressively and slammed, and it happened probably about half a dozen times successively, and then it stopped. So that's one thing that really stands out in my mind.
Well, if you've been back to the house lately at all?
Oh, I live there.
You still live there? So the activity's still ongoing?
I still live there. I moved back in about a year ago.
They're making your guest student.
It's a house just down the road. It's approximately 1900 built. No one knows for certain the year. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That sounds very cool.
It is very cool.
Very cool. Anyone else? Here, have a story you want to share, or something that's happened to them? Could turn on the light, actually. Except for the one that flashes at the front.
That's good.
Oh, no. There we go.
Have you ever investigated the Leland Hotel?
No, the Leland.
Yeah.
Where would it?
In the cusp.
In the cusp. What do you know about that?
Oldest operating hotel in BC.
Lots of stories associated with
Oh
it.
yeah. When my oldest daughter stayed there in the family suite, there's a kitchenette, and she said in the night, she kind of saw this, thought it was a guy walking by, she just was half asleep. When they got up in the morning, all the cupboards were open, and they're those old fashioned with the round that you got to click to shut.
Yeah.
So every cupboard and every drawer was open.
There's no way that would have just happened on its own. So that sounds like a good one to check out in the cusp, the Leland. Anyone else with a story, or even a question, or?
I have a question about the one of the theater in Vernon.
Yep, current theatre.
So you were in the room.
Yep.
An apparition. So did you see that, or only saw it later?
No,
in the photograph.
No, it's only when we did the playback on it, and it was all we heard was like the seats in the theatre, like that thumping noise.
Right.
That's all we heard, and it was just like, what the hell was that? We actually heard it 3 times. Like the first time we heard it, it was like, ooh, ooh. And we were questioning what was going on, and it was only the second time I turned the flashlight over to where it's coming from. Because when you first hear a thud like that, you're like, where did it come from? Especially in the dark theatre as well, it kind of throws you out. And it was only the second time we heard that thump, it was like, okay, let's turn it around. And I had one of those controls that sent a signal to the camera. And that's when I was clicking and took loads of pictures, and that appeared on there as well.
And on that note, with the voice printing, you heard up in the affiliate room.
Yep.
Hi Susan or something like that.
That was downstairs.
That was downstairs.
Downstairs, yeah.
Did you all heard that, or later?
We heard that Hi Susan through the spirit box, but the Get Them Out was, I heard that with my voice recorder, but at that time, we did hear like the guys that didn't have any headphones or anything like that.
Yeah, it was Pete, myself, and Sue, and they were just winding up for the night, and Pete said, let's just do one more room, so we put the static box on.
Yeah.
And we were standing there, we had literally just walked into the room, and the voice over the static box, nobody had headphones on, it was, hi Susan. And then a different voice said, Sue, and all 3 of us looked at each other, we all heard it at the same time.
The one upstairs was caught without the spirit box, just in terms of like a regular electronic voice phone. So no spirit box, it just came like Get Them Out. That was picked up on the recorder, but I don't think you could hear that physically.
We did hear something at the time, because it was like, well, what was that? We at that time we dismissed it as people talking downstairs, and it's because you know in houses anyway, voice transfers and stuff like that, and we just thought that the guys that were in the basement just walked upstairs, and that was it, kind of thing. It was only when we played it back, it was like a very kind of stern voice saying, Get Them Out.
But you heard it at the time as well.
I heard it. Yeah,
you played it right away.
Yeah, I do like real-time EVT sets as well. I've got the headphones onto my voice recorder, and I have like a tag button. So anything that kind of sticks out, that's kind of weird. I just tag it. So then what we do at the end of each session, I do like a quick playback on it because I'm impatient as well. And I can't wait that long because I get very excited about stuff like that. It kind of helped us over the when we were actually doing investigations. So if you're in a room and then all of a sudden I hear like someone say Tom, And we do a playback there and then. It's like, oh, I can hear Tom. Can you hear Tom? Let's use Tom. So then we can say, hi Tom, are you there? And it kind of helps us rather than doing the playback when you get home and stuff like that. It kind of gives us another piece of the puzzle to put together kind of thing. So.
Anything else? Yes.
There's an old fire lookout just past Cherryville called Eureka Mountain, and I don't know if anyone else here has been to it, but it's definitely has a very oppressive feeling energy there, but it's kind of, you drive out of Cherryville for about it's like halfway between Cherryville and the Fauquier Ferry, and you turn off on the Eureka logging road, and you drive in probably another half an hour to where the trailhead is, and you can drive up to the fire lookout, but I think now the road's pretty decommissioned. Anyways, so we usually hike in, and this was years ago, and I've been there 3 times, and I'm kind of the guinea pig because my friends don't know where it is, and I'm the only one who has the directions. Like a lot of backcountry hikers and skiers know, but they always want me to take them. So one of the times I went with 2 friends, Zeke and Jacob, and we hiked in at night because our truck got stuck and all these things were happening. So we already came up to it, and it looks spooky when you get up to the top of the hill, and it's just this like 2-story lookout. All the storm shutters are on, and it was pitch black, so you're just looking at it with a lantern, and so there's already like a weird feeling just because of that. But anyways, we go in, get settled. There's about like 20 steps up to the main floor, and then you go in, and there's a fireplace and a couple beds. So we get settled in for the night. We're kind of just talking to. We were all a little spooked out hiking in, backpacking in at night. And there's all these candles in the windows, so we lit all the candles. There's no electricity or anything, and that made it feel worse because you couldn't see out. You could only see the reflection in. So like, if there's something out there, like there's probably nothing out there. But anyways, we were laying there talking, and we were just about to fall asleep, and all of a sudden we heard footsteps coming up the stairs. But like, it's a very isolated spot, and nobody would be probably hiking in at like 3 a.m. And it was very definite, like 2 boot steps coming up the stairs. We've counted all of them, there's 20. And then there's a little thin balcony that comes all the way around the fire lookout. And the footsteps were like clunking along, turned the corner, clunked, and then stopped right by where our heads were in the window. And Zeke like flew across the room. He was terrified because of course, and we both were like, oh my gosh. And our one brave friend, Jacob, went out to look, and it was there's a full railing and stuff, and then it's a pretty high drop, so if it was somebody out there, it would be unlikely that they'd probably jump down from there. And there was nothing there, and so we all laid awake till it was light out, and then we had a nap, and then we hiked out, and it was really foggy that day when we were hiking out, and we could hear this kind of like screeching sound, eerie sound. I couldn't really describe what it was. And it was kind of following us the entire time we were hiking out until we hit the tree line, and then this giant blue jay landed on a tree. Like I'm not saying that has anything to do with it, but it definitely felt weird, and it stopped, and it just felt like there was maybe some presence there, and maybe it was attached to the animal, I don't know. But anyways, I went back one more time after that, and I peed in a bucket inside. I didn't want to go outside. Yeah, but it's definitely a weird place. No.
That'd be an interesting place just to check out anyways.
Yeah,
See where
I'm like that.
And there's the bottom floor of it, it's just this cement room with a chair in the middle of it, and it's just like, there's so many weird things, and there's a little outhouse and log shed, and an old fire tower thing, and or not fire tower, weather, or lightning rod, but yeah, it's definitely strange.
And so whereabouts is that again? Like to get?
It's just past Cherryville. It's not too far from here. Yeah, there's like a turnoff for the Eureka Mountain logging road between Fauquier and there. But yeah, I can always send you the information.
That'd be great. I'd love that. That'd be awesome.
The road's really degraded in there now.
Is it now?
Yeah, it's pretty
good quad.
Good quad, or even just drive so far and then hike in?
Yeah.
Or just quad.
Or just quad.
Kind of hiking.
We need to get a quad here.
Yeah.
CPS quad.
And there's also a logbook in there. You can kind of look back if anyone's, like it goes back to the 70s, so you can kind of read through if anyone's seen anything.
That's awesome. Oh,
yeah.
that's thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do you investigate that? Was there any knocking?
We do actually. As part of the We Want to Believe show, we've done Bigfoot hunting and stuff like that, especially because we're both from Cameras, and there's a lot of alleged signs around there and stuff like that.
Lemon Creek.
Yeah.
We're gonna head back out in the spring.
Yeah,
and do some more. So
there's a lot of parallels between what we do when we Bigfoot hunt and when we're doing that ghost hunting thing as well. Like when we've taken spirit boxes out with us and like we've done. Yeah, we've called voices like
in the middle of the woods.
But there's not even radio service or anything like that. Like EVPs as well. Like just carries voices and stuff like that. There's a science to it somewhere, but it's just weird. Like we were like literally kilometres away from civilization. It was like we were scanning through the radios. You couldn't even get a radio signal where we were, and it just got this one voice that came through and said, "Help me."
Yeah, as soon as you were help me.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's just
unexplainable.
Weird phenomenon, that's for sure.
You'll hear it in Camborne by Beaton. I don't know if you can get in there, they blocked it off. But there's some sites in there and you don't even need that, you'll just hear it.
That's awesome.
Get out and go to stuff.
We get out quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's not just a stereotype.
Yeah.
So you did?
I was just, when you were talking about one of the shots you'd taken and your battery and camera got drained, I think it was because you took so many shots in a row. But we were down, this is my daughter, and I don't know if she attracts paranormal things. We were at the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, to visit this doll called Robert the Doll. Yeah, because we'd heard different things about it, and she'd read in your Scholastics books, I think it was like in grade 4 or 5, it was at Chad, Anyways, I wanted to go see this doll, and on our way in to see it, the lady that was at the entrance that was taking our tickets, she, like told us a little story about the doll, and I said, well, have you ever had any experiences with it? And she told us this Christmas story about how when she first got hired there, she would have to go after, her shift, just before she went home, go through the museum and turn off all the Christmas lights, and then she could leave. And Robert the doll was at the end of the hallway where, the last Christmas lights were. And so the one night when she was in there, she was walking past Robert the doll's case, and she heard this tap on the glass. And she turned off the last light, and she walked back again, and here he normally is sitting in a rocking chair, and he was actually out of his rocking chair and leaning up against the glass. It scared her so much that she, I don't want to go too long because it's a very long story, and but she's a concert pianist, and she would play the piano for him because the story of his legend is that he was, owned by a concert pianist at one time, and so he liked the piano playing. So anyways, we went through the whole thing, and I was taking a whole bunch of pictures and totally forgot about Robert the doll, and you guys were about what, 10, 11? Yeah, so Steph was probably 10, and my son was about 13, and we got near to where Robert the doll was, and you feel the hair on the back of your neck kind of go up, and we come around this corner, and you almost forgot about Robert the doll, and here he's sitting in this case and stuff, and so I'm trying to get them to stand in front of the case so I could take a picture of them together with Robert the doll. And we just bought new camera batteries for the camera and stuff, and hardly taken any pictures yet. And so they didn't want to take a picture, or she didn't anyway, for sure. And there's a little hole in the glass of the case, I don't know if it's an air hole or just. So I stick my finger through the hole and I go, okay, Robert, bite my finger, and I was over there. It's not, because I was not a believer about stuff like this before, eh? I was one of the biggest skeptics you'd ever find. And so nothing happened, so they stood by Robert, and I took a picture of them, and then we went on to the next, next display, and it was some cannonballs or something. That was pretty cool, so I went to take a picture. Nothing happened. It was, the camera wouldn't work. It wouldn't even open up. It was an old SLR one. Well, it wasn't that old, it was pretty new, but it was back in 2000. And the camera wouldn't work, and the rest of the time we went through and I was trying to get it to work, and it wouldn't work. So on the way out, we saw that same lady that we talked at the beginning, and she said, "Did you enjoy your tour?" And I said, "Yeah, but your stupid doll broke my camera." And she's like, "No, it's not broken." And she says, "Just check your battery." And I said, "Well, I just put new batteries in it, so it can't be the battery." She goes, No, that's how he gets his energy. He drains batteries. And he goes, "You wouldn't believe it, like how many dead batteries happen." So she goes, "There's a camera store just down, like about half a mile from here." She told us where it was. She goes, "You can get new batteries put in there." So as soon as we left there, we went to the camera store, and the guy goes, "Oh, we're at the East Martello Museum?" And we said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, we sell so many batteries, you wouldn't believe it." Put in new batteries, and the camera worked great.
That's awesome.
I got a follow-up story. Sorry, this is going to take a long time, but we were there about 6 years later, I think, eh? And Stephanie, we bought her a new camera for a trip that she went on to France with her school, grade 9, I think it was. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anyways, they had a new case for Robert the doll, and he even had George Bush had written him a happy birthday Robert the doll kind of letter and stuff. And Stephanie, she's like a cocky 16-year-old at that time, and she's not believing in anything. And so she's, like, you're supposed to ask Robert's permission before you can take a picture of him. And she goes up and she's taking pictures of him, making faces of him and everything else. And it's this new digital camera she has. And so we go on to the next one. I thought, okay, her battery's going to be drained or something, but it wasn't. But when she went back to see her pictures, it was randomized. Like, she couldn't find the last picture she took. It went to, pictures she'd taken a month before, or, and then it would go to one she took 2 days ago, and she had a heck of a time for, months and months and months. For ever finding her old pictures, she had to basically download them onto a computer, right? And then find, the pictures she took and stuff. So, getting to the end of the story. So we were at a family reunion 6 months later, and she had a big memory card on the camera. And she's taking pictures, and finally she runs out of room on her memory card. And so she's looking for things she can delete. And she got back to her trip to Key West and the pictures of Robert the doll. And she goes, "I can delete those. I've got them all on, backed up on the computer." So she deletes all those pictures of Robert the doll, and then she takes some more pictures and stuff. And she goes back to, look at some of the pictures, and it's no longer randomized. Her camera's working perfect again. Yeah, as soon as she got rid of the Robert the doll pictures, so it was kind of like, that's weird. It could be coincidence or what. But
we was on the other side of that spectrum, because we did an investigation for Mandy and the Holy Dogs up in Cornell, and I found a lot of the stories like really hard to swallow. So I kind of went in there with the thought process that nothing's going to happen. I wasn't surprised. It was just nothing. It was allegedly, there was you have to, same kind of thing. You have to ask permission to take pictures and stuff like that. And I wasn't provoking, but I was kind of borderline because I just didn't believe it. And it was just things like she had a little lamb doll as well. Apparently, she throws it across the room and stuff like that. And I was just poking my face, tongue out, and stuff like that. It didn't happen. We got more activity with some of the memorabilia in there, what we did with Mandy the doll. But things like that. It just, a lot of them are stories like what I found over the years with objects as well. It's become more apparent now since like the Warrens with their haunted object gallery and stuff like that. Like when I first started 20 odd something years ago, you very rarely heard of haunted objects. It was never association with paranormal activity or anything like that. But I guess media has been a big part of that as well. So thanks guys. Any more questions?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Lady there.
Has anybody mentioned, or what they haven't mentioned tonight, but about the smell of these ghosts when they stand beside you?
Well,
do you know about the smell?
We haven't, with smells, we've only really picked up on smells related to like maybe a perfume, if there's supposed to be a female spirit, or if there's a, like at O'Keefe Ranch, you can smell smoke.
No, this is a distinct smell like rotten eggs.
That's associated more with kind of demonic cases and it's like more of the negative that I've seen over the years.
I've read about it before.
Yeah,
and I've heard about it before, and just wondered if you tell us that.
A lot of it, you read in books and stuff like that, there is that kind of element where people, you know, oh, I've been spending what next and stuff like that. Most of the cases I've been on with those negative or demonic cases and stuff like that, it's more of a apparent sulphur smell that's supposed to have happened, and a lot of people associate that sulphur smell with
it's very
garbage.
distinct. Yeah.
It's very distinctive, and again, it's to a degree, I still remain sceptical of that element. I believe, like I said earlier on, I believe science can play a lot into that. But there is elements to certain smells, and more as you know, us as paranormal investigators looking for ghosts and stuff like that. There's been a lot of parallels with smells like floral smells and stuff like that, and not so much perfume, but there's been a lot of association with flowers and stuff like that when things have manifested, like when spirits have made themselves present and stuff like that. But again, it's hard, like, you know, at any given time where, you know, I can count on one hand where I've actually physically seen something with my own eye, and I've got multiple witnesses. Last thing I think about that time is, oh, what do I smell?
It's so sharp, something's happening.
It is so sharp, and it's a hard one to govern. But I've heard numerous accounts.
Do you suppose maybe different fragrances should have mentioned would be associated with more evil spirits as opposed to the perfume of gentle soul?
Perfume, like people associate perfume with like loved ones and stuff like that people passed away. Floral, I've heard stories of supposed manifestation of mouths as well, with the smell of flowers and stuff like that as well. A lot of people come forward to me where loved ones have passed away and stuff like that, and people have seen their dads and stuff like that. They said, I can smell flowers and stuff like that. So there's always been that association, but with more of the negative spirits, it's always been, you know, I can smell rotten cabbage, smell rotten flesh and stuff like that. The smell's been putrid, but in the eyes of the Vatican, like I've got like a tick box when I do virtual assessments on different cases and stuff like that. It's more, what they concentrate more is like the sulphur smell, which you've seen on like Supernatural and stuff like that. There is a lot of parallels to that as well.
Yeah.
So, where's your next stop?
We actually get to investigate in there this evening again for a couple
What
of
are
hours.
your guys' like educational backgrounds?
Me? I'm a plumber.
No, wait.
I'm a plumber. Yeah, no, I'm a plumber. I work for Victorian Health. I'm a consultant business as well, but my background is more like dealt with construction and buildings and different places, forms.
The only reason I ask is like a lot of these shows you always hear they're psychics or it's scientific, like something to debunk the...
Yeah, and I have a journalism background and filmmaking background. So I was a crime reporter for 10 years, so in terms of research, interviewing people, digging up facts that way, and then with the film background, I can apply that when we do our audio, video, that kind of thing.
I think, like in relation to like psychics and stuff, I think that we all have that ability. Like we've all got that kind of intuitive sense in relation to things that are going on. There's an element as well we don't know, we never will understand anything like that. But I think with me, I'm more kind of a black and white person. Over the years, I've become more sceptical because, like the age of digital is complicated. I feel more because Photoshop. You know, people can manipulate EVPs and stuff like that.
And that's more kind of...
And it's tough. Like what I've shown you earlier on in pictures and stuff like that, you can say, "Oh, bullshit, don't worry about stuff like that." That's me, like, that's me saying to you guys that 100% for me, I'm telling you that I cannot explain that. I'm not saying it's paranormal, but for me, it's that translation as well.
Like myself, I have 16 years military administration and finance behind me, so that brings a certain type of approach to investigations that I do as well, and a certain sort of grounded framework of referencing and analyzing events.
And like I used to work in the government.
It's just interesting
Oh,
to
no,
me
it's
that
so
it's.
cool.
It
I
is.
used to deal with the problem premises, so police, fire, liaising with those property. But he'll be the one.
Okay, anything else?
I was just wondering, is there any kind of like international association of paranormal societies or something that you belong to, or is it?
I used to be a part of TAPS. TAPS family was extended throughout the world. I was a part of that TAPS family for probably about 10 years, and it's like an international network for different paranormal groups throughout the world. It got, with anything, it got too much like drama, and it was too much of a kind of, you know, I investigate better than what you do and stuff like that. I kind of chopped all that weeds away and just started again and just started my own thing and stuff like that. But I know teams throughout the world, incredible teams and stuff like that.
Are you aware of any academic studies that are going on right now?
There's been ongoing studies in the UK. There's a group called ASSAP who've been researching the paranormal for the last 27, 30 years, and there's been developments in relation to the overlap of science, because science won't acknowledge us, because there's different clauses in science about, you know, proving that this is, you know, something that's paranormal. But there's a lot of things that are coming forward in that side that's maybe make our lives a lot more easier in the future. But it just seems that the field hasn't really moved at all. Like we use the same tools effectively that we used before. With the added technology, it's actually create more confusion or dishonesty because people like use Photoshop.
When would we be able to see results from tonight?
We will probably, I need to talk to Kristen about that, but you guys, if we left some flyers on the seat and stuff like that with our contact details. We're also on Facebook as well. If we get the thumbs up from site, we can probably put our findings on Facebook eventually, if you guys are on Facebook. If not, if you guys hear of any places that potentially might be interesting to us, our contact details are on there as well. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions as well.
Thank you.